morning. This is Vaughan at westcoastbellpottery.ca in Nova Scotia, Canada. I'm going to make a platter from a slab, and I'm going to refer you to my video on rolling a slab, which I've done previously. So I'll show you a quick glimpse of that first, and then basically when you've got the slab, we're going to convert it into a slumped platter using a coil as a foot on the underside, and then texturing it with roller stamps, which I make myself, and I've shown how to make those in previous videos as well. And then we're going to put handles on using Bill Wright's handle tools from artisanpotterytools.com. So we'll get going. So you will need a slab, a large wooden board, a second wooden board with a piece of paper over the top. And I've noticed when I use paper from a newspaper that comes in the mail, you often get creases in, and they will show up in your piece if you don't get them brushed out, rubbed out. So I just dampen the paper a little bit where the creases are, and you can actually get rid of them. It leaves a line in your piece if you don't smooth it away. So anyway, that's prepared on a large bat, large wooden board, and then we have a slab, which, as you can see, when you roll it, it sticks to the plastic. I've shown that in the intro there on rolling a slab. You just have to smooth it out on one side using those simple metal kidneys that come in all tool kits that you buy these days. They're used for throwing and smoothing. And then I'm going to put this piece of paper on the underside of that. So the way I do that is I simply take this and place it on that piece of paper. And then whenever you peel plastic off clay, totally horizontal, you peel it off, it comes off without lifting the clay. And then you smooth it again. This is B-Mix 5 clay. Okay, now you can cut by hand, or you can make yourself some of these, which are just simply Luan 1/4-inch plywood, and I've cut them to curves that kind of give me a nice sort of edge or sort of shape to the platter. And it's not a complete, it was a hand cut sort of curve, so I have to be careful when I cut it to make sure it's a little even. And then using your regular clay knife that comes in your toolkit, you can cut off the excess and then spray this down straight away so it doesn't get dry. Okay, so I refer you to my roller stamp video, which shows you how to make. I've done one to make fish, and I've got these ones to do whales. So you can go to any one of those and find out how to make these roller stamps. They're very easy to make. You can even make cylinders by throwing them on the wheel very thick and then carving them out and just rolling the cylinder rather than just a tool like this. I actually like the cylinder one quite well. This one was almost a complete cylinder anyway, so you may as well, you can just throw one on the wheel. But go look at how to make these. So then I'm going to place it. This is the top one. So which do I prefer? Which one is going to be the top? We'll go this way around, I guess. And I'm going to have a lot of sky in these. So I'm going to place it right at the edge where I think the inner rim will be, or inner shoulder of the platter. Press it in. It didn't quite make it across. I probably could have come in a little bit further, but then I can simply find a place like this place here where there's no wale, put it back on there, and just finish the roll a bit just to the edge there. See? Almost like it didn't even make a difference. But let's put that in. And I'm going to change a lot of this later on, but so then I can use, I've got 2 more of these to work with. Not sure which one I prefer for the under part or not, but so then I'm going to place this one, and I'm going to press more with the corner that's here, since I don't want to go over the rim it that much in here. Just press that. And do the same over here. You can do some hand drawing into these anyway. Let's go up a little higher. You need to get a little bit more in at that corner there. Alright, so if I could go a little further up and put a little texture in just in that corner there. You'll see what I'm going to do in a minute, even though that looks off. Now that top is going to be just sky, so we've got this, and there's a little bit down here where I might have to play a little bit. I wonder if I could make a little, actually this part of the mount here. You can get, even by smudging and redrawing a little bit, you can get rid of a lot of these parts. Smooth the wale off where I touched it with the texture there. We're going to do a little bit of, this speeds up a lot of it, but we're going to emphasize the wale shapes by hand drawing into these in a little while. So this is where this comes in now, so I'm going to take that and try and find a place where I'm almost touching the texture and find where it's even, and then dip this in water, erase the area that you think is a little mistake, or not a mistake but not quite accurate enough. So we've given ourselves a nice defined edge. It's amazing how much you can fill a table up just in a few seconds with all the tools that we use. I'm going to carve a lot into that later. Now, the drawing area, you can do this last actually if you want to, but we're simply going to be going into some of these places where you think you've got something that's a little unsightly. Not sure why there was a stretch mark in that. I'm hoping that doesn't do anything, but there was a stretch mark opening up there. But I can compress that anyway. But we're going to sponge it to get it rid of it. And anywhere we feel like you need some more lines, you can just simply carve in some things just with a modeling tool. Now, I like to make the rim a little bit less thick, so I'm just going to use a roller. This is a wallpaper seam compressor thing. Okay, now you won't have to use underglazes to paint these. You could just use glazes. So because this time I'm going to make 4 of them, I'm going to try both. I'm going to paint with glazes, I'm going to paint with underglazes. That one. And that's when we need the other board. Sit it on top again. Flip it over. and just, if there's anything nasty, now's the time to kind of smooth it, but that one looks pretty good. I have one coil left over from the last one. I'm just going to give it a little mist because it's been sitting there for half an hour. And then I'm using the textured serrated edge tool to score in about 1.5 inches, so 2 to 4 centimeters in. The clay is still pretty soft, but I'm scoring. A lot of times I don't score if something's fairly soft anyway. But this one was sitting out, so just going to make it sticky basically by putting a bit of water on. The taller you are, the longer you can make your coils without them landing on the floor. I'm a short guy. So this can just go up, making sure you got the same distance. I'm going to push this in, snap that off there. It's a little bit in there, a little bit in here, a little bit in here. Just, yeah, that's pretty good. Now, the trick, so that these feet don't stretch out of where you place them, is to, like in the sewing industry, you tack edges down. I'm doing 3 per side. And when I've done that, then I'm going to go in the middle of each one. Notice the big tool I'm using too to actually push this down, so I don't have lots of bumps to smooth out. If I used a tiny little modeling tool, we'd have 100 bumps across each wall. I'm going to have probably 6 or 8 areas. Then back in the middle again. Yeah, the one that I just sold was painted with the kiwi underglazes, and I was going to do a whole video on it. And now I sold it before I even managed to get a picture properly of it. And then just to neaten up a little bit, just take the tool and drag it around. Really neaten it up. Get a wet sponge, not too wet. Let's get these off here because they're kind of in the way. And you put 2 fingers like this with the coil in the middle like that, and then you're pulling your finger all the way along. I should have put these on round bats because I keep hitting myself with the corners. But I think that's smoother, and then just get it nice on the outside again. And then smoothing the whole thing all up to the rim. And that should be good enough to flip over again. And back with the board. Flip again. And then I think you probably may have seen videos on these already. I simply try not to get rid of my carved areas, textured areas, by putting my fingers on the outer edge, putting my palm, heel of my hand into the inside of the coil, and you will get a bubble forming in the center, which you'll have to lift the edge to get rid of that. But just keep pressing. You can use your finger if you're careful. Okay, and then I'm going to just get the edge clean again. If it slumps down, or I don't need to on mine, but I'll do it anyway just to show you. You can use toilet rolls to support it. There you go. So toilet rolls, I'm going to put them where I'm going to put the handles, because that will be where I can rest the handle over. So I'm just pushing them underneath. You can squish them down and let them spring up, and then it actually supports the handle. So when they're new, these are saran wrap rolls. You have to squish them a bit more. But if you squish them to go underneath, when they pop up, they lift your rim up. And then the same. See, I didn't really need to do it because my rim was holding up, but if your rim is collapsing, you should do this. The softer the clay, the more your rim will need supporting. Alright, so I'm going to set this aside so I can put some handles on, I'll let it firm up a little bit, because by the time I put weighted handles on here it might actually start to slump. But that's already, it could be left the way it is. You don't need handles if you don't want to. So here on one of the trays, I'm actually simply following the lines from the separate rollers I was using and joining up the little contour lines to make it look like one big roller. So it's pretty easy to do. Most of them are in there, so it's just a little bit of extra time you can do on something where you join several rollers together. And it's just a matter of looking. I've already done this area here, along here, that I didn't get to that yet, so I'm going to pull these lines down. This is the handle tool that I'm going to use for the edges. I'm dipping it in water, and I'm not sure if this will be sufficient clay. I'm just going to try one and see what happens. So pull it through. So let's measure it up. Yeah, that looks okay. So I'll do another one. These are the handle tools from Bill Wright, Artisan Pottery Tools. So I'm going to do the same again. That's a nicer one actually. I wonder if I got enough to... actually it will be fine. So what I do if I got two handles, try and make them the same size, but I'm just going to smooth them off first. When I was using 516 clay, I had problems with handles cracking, so that's why I'm trying these with B-Mix. But I'm going to be doing underglaze painting on most of these, I think. And I'm only going to fire them to cone 4. It can go to cone 5 B-Mix, but it doesn't like cone 6 as far as I can figure out. So don't waste your clay, don't let it dry out. I kind of like these platters without handles anyway, but I'm going to put one on just to show you this. So I've got two handles, make sure they're the same size. They look pretty good. These are from Saran Wrap, so they're a little more... Let's try putting it under there. If I can just lift it, place it underneath so it doesn't slip out. So I'm putting it down, pushing so I can lift and turn, and that way I get it nice and underneath. You can have them as tall as you want. I mean, you can make these ribbons really tall if you want to. And I'll put some over here just for keeping it a little even. As they stiffen up, I often curl these up a little bit more by just brushing with a sponge underneath to lift the rim a bit taller, because in the firings they often sink a little bit. And then I'm just going to brush the edge where I want the handle to go with some water. I might score it a little bit. These serrated edge tools are really good for this. It might be nice, rather than having a square like this, to actually curve it a little bit. I'm not quite sure what I prefer. I'm going to stick it over there. Actually, it looks kind of nice like that, actually, so. Now, it'd be a good idea to put some resistance whenever you put a handle on, by putting the brush underneath there to push back a little bit. Get a long brush or a piece of wood, you might be able to get a bit more pressure. Same on this side. I'm going to try to, I might be able to just use the brush. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm thinking I'm going to do something on them as far as decoration, but the clay's a bit soft at the moment, so I think maybe wait a while. But there you go, attach some handles. When they firm up, I'm going to attach by going underneath a little bit to actually make sure that joint is sealed up on the underside as well. But these are all going to be underglazed painted platters. This is the Ploughman's Lunch, which is just a few kilometers from my studio on the same road. They have excellent pastries and breads here. The baker trained in Montreal, so it is a beautiful shop, and I'll show you the rest.